Welcome to the Squirrel Rosenberg Radio Show podcast. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to say we are blessed is an understatement. Before I even get into that, let me just thank everybody for tuning into our last show where I was here with Dr. Jen, just really building on what the Squirrel Rosenberg movement is all about, touching on mind development and open heart, talking about empathy, just building on the things from our previous podcast with Maddie, the monster data guy that was here. But tonight, I just want to remind everybody the music you're going to be hearing in the background is available on our SoundCloud. Our Facebook are going to be streaming live. Please watch and click into our Instagram because everything that you're seeing here in the studio, you're going to have access to, and we're going to get you to the point where you can interact with what's going on. However, tonight, I got to give a big shout out to my boy Jeffrey that's in the house. Thank you so much for popping in. I want to let you guys know my buddy here, Jefferey Reid, and I go back many moons.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
man.
I can remember the Manchester high school days.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. So, but before I even segue and get into these stories, give me a brief intro of, so the viewers out there on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio and Squirrel Rosenberg TV can really realize who I'm blessed to be sitting beside right now.
Yeah, well, I'm Jefferey Reid, and I've been friends with Paul Lawrence since I was probably 12 or 13 years old, so I've known him for over 30 years.
If you notice, people, he used my correct name because he knew me before I was Squirrel Rosenberg. Stay tuned on that. This is an epic interview. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, we go way back. We have a lot of good memories, a lot of times of us just growing up as young men and
barefooted, loving in
that
Jamaica vibes, bro.
Yeah, absolutely free.
So I really connected with you in high school, which is interesting for me because I grew up on the west end of the island.
Right.
And, when I was told that I'm going to Manchester High School, which is in the middle of the island, I wasn't too happy. Because all my boys are going to Rossi's High School, which is the local high school in my town.
Yeah, but you made it work, man.
I did. Actually, I got to be honest with you, that boarding experience, the entire boarding out experience blew my mind.
Yeah, man. I was always fascinated when I would go by and see the setup you had with your brother. What was the name of that older lady who was taking care of you?
That's interesting. I think her name was Miss Barnes.
Okay.
However, what's interesting that she was like the third or fourth person we have lived with.
Really?
Yeah, because every school year, we would, move with a different family.
I remember.
But you see, the thing about what you mentioned about her and then my brother is, I'm talking about when you're taken out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. You gotta find you.
Ooh, ladies and gentlemen, my boy Jeffrey just dropped the first jewel on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio, as he said, and that was a tag team jewel right there, because I said when you're taken outside of your comfort zone,
you have to find you. You
find you, and a lot of people don't like finding themselves.
That's
and
true.
The reason why that was so profound, Jeffrey, let me share this story with you. If I were to encapsulate that experience of leaving my town and going to Mandeville and just being out of my comfort zone, I plopped into this new strange place. And Jamaica is a small island, but still, it was like taking me from Jersey and dropping me in Idaho.
Yeah, totally different.
Completely different place. I found me. And what I found was, this guy's kind of funny. Because I was by myself most of the time, walking, talking to myself like a crazy person, chilling. And this guy's kind of funny,
Oh, absolutely.
And I remembered one special time, and I'm sorry for being so long-winded, but when you brought up that point about finding you, I found myself. So I was at the bus stop one day, and I'm thinking, and I'm talking to myself in my head, and I gave myself this joke that now I'm laughing out. And I have to walk away from people because you're looking like, this freaking guy over here is crazy. It's crazy. But I found myself through that experience. And ever since then, I have appreciated or almost been excited about getting outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah. For me as a reference, and this is how, I always tell you that you inspire me. Because when I came to New York, I was in a similar space.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, man. When I came to New York back in '88, I basically didn't know anybody, and I had to fit in with a whole new environment. And I just realized that, sometimes it's just the personal connection with people is just really important.
True.
And from that, I grew out to have a lot of good relationships with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then, I always thought of how you adjusted to being at Manchester High. And you basically built a lot of relationships. I never forget. Which year was it? It was fourth form.
Talking about building relationships.
Fourth form.
Yeah.
And you always said that you're gonna be a person that's an independent guy, a business guy.
Yeah.
And we were all standing around waiting that morning, and there you walking. Everybody had book bags, knapsacks, or you came with a briefcase, man. The place flipped out. It was a regular riot.
I did. I forgot. Thank you for bringing that. I forgot how left field I've always been on my movement. You're right. I did. My dad.
But it's funny that it's like you reprogrammed everybody's mind. It's like, whoa.
Okay.
We could actually bring a briefcase to school.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I did. Even the teachers were impressed.
Yeah, they were. I got a couple comments on that. Wow, thank you for bringing it. I completely forgot about that. Back to why it's such an honor to have you here, because we go back so far, bro.
Yeah, man.
As you were talking about even the high school experience, I remembered, because I want to let everybody know my boy Jeffrey here is, I wouldn't say, I don't use the term because you're cooler than what the term enunciates, but a brainiac. And in Jamaica, the hierarchy of classes that you were in would be based on how proficient you were academically. So if you were in 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", as the numbers go down, you get more retarded. Yeah. So what I want you to understand is this, and I was just a little bit twisted there. My boy Jeffrey
But a lot of that.
No, it was academics. It was heavy academics. It was heavy.
It was.
Jamaica is straight academics. But my point is this. You were in Form 6'1".
Right. No, 5'1". 5'1".
At the end of the day, it's the same. You were number one.
Right.
You were always in number one, my dude.
Right.
And I inspired to be in that group.
Yeah.
Your boy, I was right around 6'3". It kept me right around 6'3". I probably stepped back into 6'4" once, but 6'3" is where I was the mediocre guy when it comes to the academics. But the will to assimilate, the will to learn, to grow is what kept me in the group of 6'2" and 6'1" friends. That's,
but it's interesting. What I think feeds into that is our fathers.
True.
Yeah, because a lot of what I was doing was influenced by my father, because my father was the one who would say, listen, read more, read beyond what you're doing in class. So when I'm reading all of this stuff now, and it's way outside of the scope of what's being done in the classroom, what am I gonna do? Just sit around with it in my head. So that's why I would always talking about all this crazy stuff. What's this guy talking about?
I get it.
So that's what it was.
Wow.
It's like yellow yams and dinner, right?
Yeah.
What does yellow yams and dinner have to do with condensation, right? But if you have yellow yams in a Pyrex dish with a clear cover, then the steam condenses on the underside of the cover,
the
right?
Pyrex cover, yeah.
So my father would take that as an opportunity to say, well, this is how clouds and the weather works, right? Right.
Wow.
It evaporates, right?
Right. The hot food in the container.
Yeah, the steam, and it's when you take it off, you could see the steam, but if you cover it, the steam actually attaches itself to the surface and condenses, become
droplets of water.
You see dripping back in?
Yeah.
So he said that's how it rains. So
he's showing you a climatic cycle
exactly
in the Pyrex dish with the
yellow yams.
Yellow yam.
Yeah.
How profound.
And that's just the power of a father that just wants the best for his kids. And I guess for you, your dad was operating a hardware store.
My dad was what would you call? And I don't want to segue from what your story about the dad, but and I'm reason why you brought that up, and I just want to remind everybody that's listening to this podcast right now that we touch on a couple topics, and I love when we're able to touch on family, so you can see the catalyst for why certain people are what they are, because we have a massive impact on our kids, whether we like to admit it or not, and the subconscious effect is also we have to be very conscious of.
Yep.
As ironic as that sounds. So I'm glad you brought up, and we're gonna segue into the family point of this now. But let me compliment you on a couple of things. So let me compliment your dad on this. Every moment is a teachable moment.
Yeah.
And we miss those opportunities because we get caught up in the business of life.
Right.
I gotta do. My dude, stop. Take a breath. That Pyrex dish with the yellow yam.
Yeah.
It's classic. The climate.
Yeah.
And for everybody from the U.S. and other countries, because I'm sure the Puerto Ricans know this, and the Dominican, we're gonna call it yuca in the plate,
Yeah.
covered by another plate. You understand exactly what I'm talking, right,
Yeah.
Manny? You can understand what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Had food, so that teachable moment, and knowing that, it meant your father paid attention to detail.
Science lesson. For him, that was a science lesson. And, you know, he was a man of very, very humble origins, you know.
Where did he grow up?
He grew up in a place called Marley Hill, which is South Manchester.
Okay.
And his father basically used bamboos, and he would split bamboos until you get sticks and clean them up with a machete.
Yeah.
And then he would weave those bamboos together to make a basket.
Okay.
And he would take those basket out into the Caribbean Sea and put bait inside, because I have a trap door.
Okay.
And that's how he would catch fish. So he never had nets. He made. And he basically never had much education opportunities. So for somebody who was just basically a fisherman,
right.
and they also grew a bean called gungu, and a lot of people don't know gungu peas. So you know, some Jamaicans hate gungu peas. Gungu peas soup, gungu peas with rat. Yeah, but my point is that he grew up eating gungu peas and fresh fish, and so his lifestyle was very poor. But his father wanted the best he could get done for him.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was a very bright guy. He passed the thing, what do you call it, second year or third year, whatever it was at the time, under the English colonial system.
Yeah, wow.
But he passed it 3 times in a row. And a lot of people could even pass it once. But every time he passed it, he said that he would sit on his bed and look at the passing letter, and knew that he could not afford to go to a tertiary institution because there was just no money.
So
that always stuck with me. So he kept on reading. He kept on opening up his mind. So when he had me, he just poured all of that into me.
Okay.
So you know, when everybody interacted with me in high school, and they thought that, oh man, this guy's so obsessed with all the science stuff. But they never realized it's hard to explain to people what the real source of all of that is. So you know, I was living a lot of what my father could not do.
You see, what I salute from that story is, why would he consistently take the test, or even persist with becoming so educated by expanding his mind, versus saying, we don't have the funds, let me stop wasting my time with this, and let me go start digging a field and start rearing some things and start, you know, becoming a fisherman like my dad.
He stuck it out. He became a teacher.
Okay.
So he worked for the government of Jamaica for a little while, and then he immigrated to England, to a place called Sheffield, which is
big.
Sheffield. Yeah, Sheffield is but Sheffield is basically a steel town.
Yeah, blue collar workers.
Yeah. If you see sometime a lot of these stainless steel cutlery knives or stainless steel cutlery from England, it would be stamped with the Sheffield
logo,
insignia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he ended up there for a while, and then he came back to Jamaica. He spent 11 years in England, and then, you know, then I came along. Well, my sister came along first.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's the makeup of the family? How many brothers? How many sisters?
Yeah, I have one sister, and she's an attorney. And
did she get the same inundation of information as you did,
she did,
or did she get the girly treatment like you typically think the girls would do?
You know, kids are just different, so they process things differently. But yes, you know, she got the same amount of pouring in that I got a lot of that, you know, a lot of that from my mother as well. But I just really have to say that a lot of that nurturing was done by my father.
Yeah,
and I do that with my kids now. They kind of get it, but you know, over time we'll see.
Yeah, which is really, because I can tell you right now, just even subconsciously, the impact my mom has had on me, I'm now getting it over time. You know, I'm now able to call her at this age and say, hey, thank you for being this stalwart of a role model. Yeah. I think one of the takeaways, though, from just having this, you know, as we discussed with the first topic that we're doing here on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio, is the fact that, your father was nurturing. You don't hear that's like an oxymoron.
Yeah, nurturer.
Yeah, you don't hear that. And I want to salute you. I want to salute your dad, and all the men out there that are nurturers.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and be secure in that, because I the reason why I
remember that guy. You know what he used to do. You know when you have stubble. You know, one of the things I remember with him is that for him to make me laugh as a little kid, like he's putting me to bed, is to rub stubble on my cheek, and it would tickle the hell out of me. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Big shout out to dads who spend the time.
Big shout out to dads, man. It takes a lot to be a dad, to spend time with your kids, and to just show that side of yourself to nurture. Yeah. You know,
to nurture.
Because it takes a lot of focus, a lot of attention. And there's nothing the average man should be ashamed of, to really, you know, because sometimes I think guys think that machismo, they have to do this machismo thing. I can't see how it really
they're kind of lost, and this is what this is where we can now segue a little bit into this other topic I want to talk about, is the society teaches us about ego. And I know there's a lot of books, there's a lot of people who have spoken prophetically about ego and how to maneuver ego. But at the end of the day, we want to break things down practically here on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio. And when we say the ego gets in the way, what do you mean? There's a big difference to an ego and being confident. Same way there's a big difference between arrogance, and also being confident or annoying.
True.
You know what I mean?
And it can be misinterpreted.
Yeah, I'm also, the word I want to look for was the slight difference between being persistent and annoying. So, and there's a thin line to balance there. So what I want people to understand is ego, as I don't remember who said it well, and I'm not going to plagiarize anybody, but is edging God out. That's the acronym they associated with that. And when I dive down into that more, what I understood is, if you really look at everybody like how God look at you, you will serve others.
Absolutely. I mean, as far as ego goes, sometimes I feel like ego to me is emotion in the driver's seat. Right?
Slow down. You just dropped another jewel on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio. Run that by me again.
Yeah, it's ego is emotion in the driver's seat. But confidence is a lot more aligned with logic. Yes. Right? So it's your logical mind, not necessarily at war, but in competition with your emotional.
Yes.
And for some people, sometimes the emotions run the show.
Yes. And I know a couple of those.
Yeah. And unless you have a coach, sometimes, like a dad or a mom or somebody who could tell you, listen, you need to throttle back those feelings sometimes. And you need to be just cold and clinical. Yeah. You need to just step back and say, what is the move that I really need to make? It's like if you're playing chess, can you just play on how you feel, right? Or you got to play it basically on what the logic of the circumstance calls for.
True. True. The logic, wow. And I like the way you use that chess as an analogy of how one should control one's emotion and get the ego out the way. Because if you, I guess, I'm kind of profoundly blown away by that statement you made when you said ego is emotion in the driver's seat.
And it lets you do things. And for younger men too, sometimes they get into situations that they shouldn't be in.
And it's not based on their emotions.
Definitely. And they can be put in situations as well, because you can be manipulated with that big time. Yeah, that is by both males or females.
True. And that's where it comes back to awareness. So we were talking about another thing, and one of the things we wanted to expound on, and you can give me your opinion on this because you've been around kids for a long time and other adults. As you develop and you meet friends and you try to build, I've realized that there's an awareness that not everybody has. My boy Matty talked about trying to meditate, get into a thought-free state.
Yes.
So you can really.
Yes. Absolutely.
Have you ever done? Have you ever gotten to a thought-free? I've been trying, but it's
that's comes back to the fathers again, because that's one thing my father used to say to me: take 5 minutes in the day and just be silent, have no interactions with anything, and you'll just have some clarity. And you'll be surprised how much you can accomplish just by having some downtime, quiet time. because you'll be able to process a lot of things. You get insight.
The funny thing about that, and as you were saying, it started hitting me. Manny will tell you, there's a lot of times during the day, and he'll be here working, and I come in, and I just said, hey, what's up? I maybe don't even say that, right? And he's over there working, and I would come in, and I'd either just go in a couch, turn the TV on. I'm not even watching the TV, but it's on, and I just in this state. You know, my eyes are maybe closed, but I'm trying to be still, and it's a whirlwind going on in my world outside. Like really and truly, there were so many holes to plug and so many things. But when I be still, and I catch that, but I've never gotten to a thought-free state. But I think I've played with what you just mentioned. We're taking time to be still. Yeah, you know, just to be centered more. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just that I feel like in the silence is a place where God is. I feel that, you know, it's in that. I can't remember where in the scripture, but you know, we always heard the saying of that still small voice.
Yes. And
that still small voice, sometimes you just need to be quiet, because when it's noisy, you got to be able to listen to it. Because Jamaicans have this saying where they say, boy, you know, one mind tell me so, almost one mind. So this is one mind thing, right? But it's really not. It's not really one mind. That's how to me. I mean, as a Christian person.
Yeah.
That's how the.
Sure. No, go ahead. Taking it live on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio. This is live powwow, live podcast movement. A call's coming in. As a matter of fact, what we should have done was tag him in so the call can come right in on the podcast, so we can say to the. Yeah. So don't just keep me posted on the count out, Manny, just so I don't go overboard on this conversation, because you're about to segue into something nice. No, take your time, bro. Keep it close to you, so if you need to.
I'm gonna kill the audio.
Okay.
It's dead.
All right, cool. So no problem. So you were. Yeah. Where were we? Let's bring that back in. No. So you were mentioning in the silence is where God is.
Yeah, and
that's another jewel on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio. Don't get it twisted. We're not going to let these jewels go by. 3 jewels so far in the first 20 minutes of this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. In the silence is where God is.
God is, yeah. And if you learn to listen to it, and you stay in that space of trusting, learning to listen, because after a while you'll realize that, wait a second, had I just I had a premonition before that I needed this or I needed that, you know?
Yeah.
And it can be small things, but cumulatively it's that way of him working with you over time, and then you're growing. So the more you're able to listen and just pay attention to these cues, you find that things click.
And the more you thrive for a thought-free type of mindset, the louder his voice gets.
Yes.
And you know, Manny was talking, I mean not Manny, but Maddie was saying he's no TVs. As a matter of fact, he only has one TV, and it's a Netflix thing, so he watches what he wants to watch.
When he wants to
watch.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And he's very careful of what is in his space and the information. And that attention to detail for me rang loudly, because I keep it noisy in my surroundings.
You got to know yourself too, because people differ. You know?
True. No, but I can only imagine. Right. What if I were to shut off the noise? You follow?
Yeah.
Imagine if I'm doing this nicely right now. Imagine if I were to shut off the noise. You know, so I was just, and I love hearing different perspective, and I'm glad what you said, because people do function differently.
Definitely.
One of the things we love touching on here as we expand on life and family and friends and, you know, our being as individuals is the religion thing. And you mentioned the profound statement of in the silence is where God is. What's your view on religion? And that's a very vague question, because I want you to just give me your view on what you were exposed to as a kid growing up. What's your perception of it? How do you see it's applicable now in our society? Because it just seemed like everybody's kind of, and I use religion loosely because it's a loaded question. You follow?
Yeah. So go. Well, you know, over the years I've learned that organized religion is a very capable force of accomplishing a lot of things in the world. Being part of of faith-based organizations that are well structured, you can get a lot more done than if you try to do something as just a individual. But sometimes, and the reason why I mention it is that, you know, I'm a member of a reasonably large church in Queens, and I've come to realize that a lot of the things that the church is able to do is just based on its structure and the numbers of people that you can marshal to say focus on a specific issue.
But what about, let me be the devil's advocate here and say, what do you say to those people who like, but why do I have to be a part of this church to make a thing?
Because that's what the people are.
But I don't have to be in a church to rally people.
No, you don't.
You see what's going on. I mean, right now, once the Squirrel Rosenberg movement get big enough, I do a tweet and we're going to have a couple 100,000 people outside getting things moving. You know what I mean? Look at what Kanye West did when he went to Turkey. I mean, he did a tweet and said, I'm going to do a free show here, and the place was full.
But that's another thing too. You know, my pastor is Reverend Dr. Edward Davis, and I attend a Presbyterian church in St. Albans. I mean, I don't want to get specific, but I'm getting specific. But there's one thing he always says: you got to take it from your seats in the pews to the streets. So you got to take it from inside the church building out into the world.
Yeah, into the streets, which is where Jesus was actually.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I'm not.
So if you're ministering, if you're feeding kids, or you're putting pencils in a child's hand, that's ministry. And so we have an opportunity every single day to minister, to work towards the greater good. Sometimes people just think that the idea of just going inside of the church building is it.
Yeah.
And then they're back outside, and then they do nothing for the greater good of anybody.
Or apply what they just learned or heard.
I mean, that to me is where, you know, then you make religion ineffective in the world, because I mean, well, you make the power of God's impact in the world, because I see us as tools. I see us as tools in the hands of the Maker, and as tools in His hands, we're out here in the world to actually fix and make things better.
However, I would want to complement that by saying all human beings.
All human beings. Absolutely.
Every single one of us is a tool. Now, the thing about the church thing and organization and the religion, for me, and I've gone, you know, coming up Jamaican, you know how it is. There's more church per square footage in Jamaica than bars. So we've inundated with that. And for me, when I grew up, I was really, you know, my parents were very involved in the church. It was a good thing. You know, every Sunday, the bing, bing, bing. When I went to school in Kingston, I became not caught up, but I was exposed to a more, it was the Blair's Church on Portmore. So, I saw a lot of things that went on there that kind of blew my mind. I mean, I was Methodist before, now I'm in this. It was like, whoa. You know, people getting spirit, talking in tongues, and it's coming down the line.
Right.
Yeah, I remember.
Totally different format.
Completely different format. You know, so I'm in the church once, bro, and I'm in the pew, right? And Holy Ghost is coming down the pews, and I see people flipping out and fainting and talking in tongues, and I'm like, it's coming. Right. And I see this person dropping in it, and they come to me, and I'm like, nothing happened. Right. You know what I mean? And I was like, do I fake something? But nothing happened. But for me, it was, I didn't say it was the theatrics of it all, but I was a little bit taken aback, like, I don't want this.
I got you.
You follow?
Right.
And then when I came here to go to school, I kind of just like, I don't want to be a part of this.
I got you.
But you rear a child how he's supposed to grow,
right?
And he'll come back.
Come right back
by you. So I went on that prodigal journey, but I came back. But during that journey,
my wife returned me to church because I was going to church. I wasn't going to church at all.
You know?
Yeah, and you know, funny. My father would say to me, "Are you going to church on Sundays?" And I said, "No." He said, "Man, you need to find some church."
No, but we're talking about the church thing, and I didn't want to segue from this, but the point is this. Once you realize that, for instance, you want to become educated, you want to learn something, you go to school.
Sure.
You understand?
Yes.
If you want to become an accountant, you study accounting. Yes. You'll sharpen your skills in that.
Right.
So if you want to have a relationship with God,
yes,
and that's where and it's also funny, they should take out the word religion, or let's just fix it from the Latin root of to relate and make it a relationship. You know, but if you have a relationship,
right,
then you're going to want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to learn more about this person.
Yes.
And when I invited you here tonight, and I use this analogy with Maddie, how far do you live from me, my youth? How much far did your GPS set?
What did it say? Almost like 30 miles or something like that.
Yeah, but of course, you're coming from Queens, so that's 4 hours. Right? Yeah, depending on the time you travel.
Right.
But my point is this. Because we have a relationship, it made you want to come here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And because I have a relationship with you. Today I'm in the gym at 12.
Yeah.
And one of the ladies goes, so what are you doing today? I'm going to have a podcast with my boy Jeffrey. I'm excited. Yo, dude. That's my highlight on it. I got here at 5 o'clock with my boy. Like, son, let's make sure, clean off the table, my youth, make sure everything is crisp. Because it's a relationship. And once it is a relationship, and I know all my viewers on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio has heard this before, you want to be involved. You want to be a part of. And I love when I go to church because it's like a reset button. But then if you take control of that information
and apply
it, because you ain't gonna pass accounting if you don't apply that and study it.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I don't understand why people say, I don't want to go to church and I don't want to give up no money. Well, my dude, if you want to become educated in something, you're gonna have to make some.
You know what I've found very effective over the years is to sometimes when I pray, well, some persons who've heard me pray, they wonder why I approach a prayer a certain way. So you remember when Moses was God was revealing himself to Moses and he was in the bush and the fire was burning in the bush.
Burning bush, yeah.
Right. But the fire burned but the bush wasn't consumed.
Correct.
Right? So sometimes when I pray, I tell God that you are the one who was in the burning bush and the fire burned, was not consumed. Or Elijah, when the fire came down from heaven and consumed the bullock in front of Ahab, and I say that you are the one who sent the fire to consume the bullock
and not
in front of the priest of Baal.
Yeah.
So by saying that, I'm talking to the exact divine source. So when you said about relationships, that's my connect.
Yeah.
It's like it's like I'm dialing his number.
Yeah.
This is you. I'm dialing your number. This is your digits.
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm going to that source.
The funny thing about it is, as so passionate you were about talking to that source.
Yeah.
The only way you're able to passionately talk about that is because you've been through experiences in your life where you had to tap into that source or listen to that source. And I think that's where a lot of people drop the ball. I don't want to go through that valley of the shadow of death, so I can know that He's there with me. So I know that He's my rod and my staff. You feel what I'm saying? But they don't want to go through the valley of the shadow of death. Dude, if you realize, if I had a crystal ball and I showed it to you and I said, okay, Jeff, here's a crystal ball. You're going to have to go through this hell, but this is what's on the other side. You would take on that hell like it's no problem because your vision is focused on the end result because I showed it to you. The only difference with our people is we can't see it. And once we start seeing it, we're going to realize that it's right there. You know what I mean? So I want to wrap up on this. Go ahead. You were about to say something.
I was just going to say that, a teaching moment for me and him was, my mother had a brain tumor. A tumor that was not a malignant tumor, but a benign tumor. And it was on the base of her brain. And
near the medulla oblongata?
No, right underneath, in the center of your head.
Okay.
Or the base of your brain.
Okay.
So many years ago, they had. You and I were, but I never really told you. But I was going through
something was going on
in fourth form.
I knew something was going on.
So she had a major surgery. They took off the front of her head. Basically, took down the front of her face. She had staples up around on top of her head, and they removed the tumor to relieve the seizures. But the seizures continued over time. And when I was here in New York, I was in college. I mean, I had a whole, I'm not saying 18 credits going on.
Yeah, of course.
Full engineering program, full blast. And she had a massive seizure. And long story short, she ended up in a coma. And my aunts came to the hospital. And they were flipping out on me, right? But I had come to terms. They never understood that God took me through this journey where I came to terms with her dying. And they couldn't come to terms She's still alive, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Hallelujah. Let's toast to moms.
Mom,
Big
boy.
shout out to moms.
Mom broke her hip. She's what? She's in her 80s now. She broke her hip probably about 6 years ago. And she's back. She's completely back, mobile, walking. So when you see I'm saying that God is good and able,
yeah,
that's what I mean. But my point is, after she had the surgery and she was in a coma,
you had come
I had come to terms
because he had comforted you somehow.
Yeah. And he had showed me that because when you knew me growing up, you remember you never saw my mom.
No, I did not.
You only saw my father.
Yes,
because my father was because my mother was here, right? So my mother was here providing for us in Jamaica.
Okay.
So she would rotate back and forth.
Nice.
Because she was here as a RN, a private duty nurse.
Right.
And she would be away for like 6 months and home for 6 months or whatever, the case was. But the bottom line is, he showed me that this woman who's here in a coma has done her mission of getting you now to where I need you to be.
Yes.
And I felt blessed that
what a great perspective.
That was done for me. So this is what he was saying to me. So I realized that, you know what? From this point forward, I have to live every day and put out 100%. So that's where my mind was.
Okay.
But their minds were not there.
Yeah.
They were just bonkers. How come you're not acting a despair where you're shedding your tears and so but again, that's where the logical mind had to take over.
No. I think
otherwise, me and them, they're flipping out, I'm flipping out. What's accomplished, right?
Oh my God, that was so beautiful. And I think I'm really glad that mom not only is still here with us, moving
it's
and
incredible.
living, but the fact that he comforted you. Because as I heard you speak, and it's so interesting about people's conversation and the stories that are shared. And I know somebody out there on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio can empathize with the story Jeff just shared, but I don't think you know this, but my twin sister Paula, she passed away in 05 actually.
I remember.
And that experience of being comforted, that's how I made it through it.
I got you.
So I'm flying out for Germany on Wednesday. I'm flying out Thursday. I get a call Tuesday that my sister's in the hospital. I need to come to Canada immediately. I get to Canada. She's in a coma. And Jeffrey, before I left the United States, I knew in my mind what my job was going to be.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. It was going to go there, hold her hand, like how Jesus did to that little girl in the Bible, and said, "Wake up," and she would. And that's what I went to do, and it never happened. And the doctor looked at me and goes, "Dude, I respect your faith, but based on what we know, that is not moving that we injected. There's no activity in." And I went back into that room and I said a prayer. And then I realized that, number one, that feeling of a comfort came over me. And I said, I'm going to go back to my hotel room. I go back to my hotel room and I call my mom in Jamaica and said, I just booked you a flight. You need to come here right away. And she's like, Jamaican mom.
Yes.
Why? I said, I'm like, well, I don't want to, just come through. I'm in Canada, And she's like, Paul, I saw Paula this morning. So I really couldn't, because she's like, I wake up in the morning and I hear somebody say, bye, mommy. You know what I mean? So she kind of, but for me, and that moment was when I went back to my hotel room, I got on my knees and I didn't say I begged, but I beseeched God. I really beseeched him to give me Paula back. And in that voice that I know so well, he said, she's not coming back, but everything else is going to be okay. He comforted me. I never went back to that hospital. My mom and my brother went and handled everything else at the hospital. I just focused on the logical stuff now, the cremation, everything else, bank account, everything else that needed to be done logically. That's what I took on. you know, because I had that connection that you just so eloquently spoke about. And that's why when I hear these stories, I want people to understand what we're talking about here on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio isn't some pixie dust, a magic wand. It's about an experience. It's about a relationship that you need to test these boundaries to. And then it gives you the confidence to step off that mountain.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Wow, dude.
So that journey prepares you for something that's on the horizon.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And it's I feel our experiences help other people cope.
But let me ask you this: the healthy perspective that you're having on obstacles and curveballs, and because there's other people out there, and you know, we're not saying that they're less than us. It's just that why are you so equipped and they're not equipped? Do we microscopically look back at all the ingredients in that gumbo that made you who you were, which is your dad's nurturing, your mom's provision, but something there kept you, I don't know, I think inherently you were somehow aware.
I think on a lot of levels we realize that there is circumstances that happen to other people as well that we reference.
Okay.
And one really, really big circumstance for me is when I was a really tiny guy, probably like 2, 3. I was living with my maternal granduncle.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
So this is my mother's uncle.
Yeah.
Right. We used to call him Tata. Now, Tata was the first person to ever expose me to coffee. So I said, "Yeah, come here, little boy, come.
Jamaican
Sip some of this, yeah." So I've always had a taste for coffee in my mouth. I to this day I love coffee.
No way.
For real, man. But Tata's story, and he made sure he told me this, is that he said when he was 12 years old, his mother, who is my great grandmother,
Correct.
was ill. Now her husband was in the Jamaican constabulary force, the police force. He was a policeman, but he was killed in the line of duty.
Okay.
Right? And she had 5 children. So she perceived that she was gonna die. He was 12, and everybody else was younger than him.
Wow.
Down to
Okay.
a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And he said that she brought all of them into her bedroom, and she said she's gonna pray for them, and she's gonna leave God with them to take care of them. So I gotta be careful here, I don't get too emotional.
Yeah.
But as a 12-year-old boy, she charged him to take care of them. She charged him at 12.
Of 12.
12.
And there's 4 other youngsters.
Yep. So he kept all of them in the house.
So she passes away.
She dies. She dies that very day. And they're orphans.
What?
Including my maternal grandmother.
Wow.
Yes. And he can tell you so many ways to feed yourself. Butter and potato, boy. You whip up you can make butter, you know, boy. Give me the milk and I make the butter. So he can make butter.
Oh.
He can, if it's only eggs, we have chickens going.
Yeah.
So as a 12-year-old, okay, raise a chicken, always have eggs, always have potatoes, always have. So he figured a way out to get everybody grown up. That's all he figured out how to do. Get everybody to be at least 18, and they all boom flew off all over the world. Some of them went to Panama and came back to Jamaica.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is,
At 12.
I grew up now to see all of these big family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, eventually, you know, what he was telling me was, look at how many of us there are. Right. My little sister, which is my grandmother, you all call them my little brother, my little sister. Say, what's he talking about? This person's 84, 83, 80, whatever, right? But for him,
Yeah.
But the end, I'll tell you the end, how God is good, how God closes things. I see this big family, so he was basically telling me, he said, God heard her prayer, and God fulfilled
Yes.
what she had asked him to do. But God kept him alive and he watched all of his younger siblings die.
No way.
Then he died last at 95.
Wow. That is a profound,
Deep, bro.
that was a profound, especially when you can have that bird's eye view of that entire timeline. And you know what? I'm going to take that moment to really let that marinate with our viewers here on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio. You have to understand the full circle of what Jeffrey just shared, and how the not knowing how your story is going to end up.
God writes it. He's the author. He's truly the author and the finisher of all things.
I'm going to stick a pin right there on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio, Squirrel Rosenberg TV. All these jewels, all these topics are going to be available on our SoundCloud, or Facebook, on our Instagram. And we're actually going to be transcribing this particular podcast immediately, so you can actually sit back, and if you wanted to read what we're hearing right now, and we'll be able to catch that. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Squirrel Rosenberg Radio, Squirrel Rosenberg TV. One. Welcome back to the Squirrel Rosenberg Radio Podcast. We're sitting here just wrapping up the last few things with my boy Jefferey Reid. And Jeffrey, before we went into the break, or just took a little walk around and refreshed our Heinekens, you wanted to close with something on the last topic.
No, I just wanted to say that I love God, literally.
I think you said that a little bit more loud and a little bit more passionate.
Literally love God.
Yeah, me too, bro.
Right.
Me too. And what's so funny is a lot of people may think, I am, I'm not into God, or I'm not into this. I will do this on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio. I will use any other synonym that represents that energy that we all know and well. So if you get offended with God, I'm going to use love, happiness, kindness, peace, everything that's a part of us as human beings that describes the being that we're all talking about, which is the Creator, God. So with that said, I really appreciate you for mentioning and really closing on this, the topic of religion and relationship with that, and the takeaway that we want you all to have. However, as we get ready to touch on the last topic here, I didn't get a chance to hear your views or just your opinion, whether philosophical or more traditional. What do you think about the political climate of the United States right now, my friend?
Wow. I think we're in an age where there are real needs, right? And
there've always been needs, though.
Yeah, there have always been needs, but at this point in time, some people really can't figure out how to keep their heads above water, and they're facing a lot of challenges. And if you just take one topic, one issue, which is affordability of college education, right?
Okay, yeah.
College education is really not affordable for a lot of people.
That's true.
If you're in a rural environment in the middle of the U.S., my humble opinion, I think that it's challenging to find $60,000 or $70,000 a year to send a kid to school, especially if your entire family income is maybe 40 G's on a farm.
Yeah, true.
And it's just really, really tough to do.
Yeah.
And I just think those costs ran away, where it's not so much about the value of what you're learning so much as opposed to where you are, which school you're in.
Okay.
It's not the education itself and its value of how are you gonna apply to transform your life. So I feel that we're in a political environment where people are struggling, and there's just a lot of desperation there, and I think it's if their economic condition doesn't actually turn, I think we're in for some topsy-turvy times, restive times.
I mean, we were just talking about a couple of things that even with this Obamacare thing where they were so adamant about repealing and replacing.
Yeah.
And I'm touching on that because it's really just, on Friday where that balloon just got shot down.
Yeah.
And you were talking
There's
about...
a need.
Yeah, there's a need.
Yeah, there's real need. And
Yeah.
how many years ago, just before Barack Obama got into office, Doctors Without... I remember reading in the New York Times, I'm quoting the New York Times, but I'm just saying that I remember reading of Doctors Without Borders being in the southern United States. And they said that, you know what, we're just going to be here for 3 days in some rural county. And they didn't spend 3 days. They spent like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And the needs of the people were very diverse. People needed extractions. They had all kinds of ailments
in the United States of America,
right here in the U.S. And that made it crystal clear to me that there are huge needs for affordable care.
Yeah. I think that was also felt by the people in Washington.
Yeah, and there's a lot of emergency care health that was going on too. I mean, now you could go to what they call them, urgent care centers or whatever.
Yeah, but
right?
that's the commercialized or the capitalistic approach to medicine, because I mean the guy who can afford
would go to the emergency room. There were a lot of people who did that.
True.
You and I, we end up paying for it because that emergency room care is generally expensive because people are really like very sick when they end up in an emergency room.
Yeah, it was so funny when you mentioned that we end up paying for it, because I am a little bit disappointed, and you want to have some accountability, because I'm pretty sure when your kids were born, you had to deal with that expense.
Yeah, sure.
You deal with every part of that expense.
Sure.
I'm not talking about, the rearing of the child. I'm just talking about the birth, going to the hospital, the doctors that were compensated, whatever, it's through your insurance or whatever it was, but you paid for it.
Right. Absolutely.
And what I am trying to wrap my mind around is when I go into some of these low-income neighborhoods and I see these girls having kids, and I see what the home, I'm like, how are you going to the hospital, having this baby? Who's paying for that cost?
Yeah.
And then you're coming home and you have all it just seemed to be this unproductive cycle where there's not some accountability from everybody along the part to make this more effective. But then again, I'm not a savvy political person. I'm not savvy when it comes to the dynamics of the insurance, and maybe I should be so I can make a more profound statement. I'm just a fly on the wall looking in.
Me too, man.
Yeah, I'm just like, dude, this is just crazy. Common sense stuff. So without being, boggled down, I do like the fact that when Hillary was running for president, it showed to the females the ability of
the girls. The girls love
as
that.
Beyonce say, they run the world. You know what I mean? For me, I having two girls also, I was just really blessed to be able to see that. And to my buddy Stevie Du Bois said it best when I asked him about the political climate. He paused and then he said, "We need love."
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I sometimes I get the feeling like it's not so much that I disagree with you or your views. Lately there's this element of hostility.
Yeah, but it's okay to disagree. Why can't
Absolutely.
But I know what you're talking about. The element of hostility is what.
It has a funny undercurrent there. I don't like it at all.
And I love to bring up these other guests, just like I probably will do on my next podcast when I talked. But my boy Anthony Love, he said, because Trump is in the president or is in the presidency, doesn't give you the right to do something crazy or say something crazy.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't validate that.
You gotta keep the civility in there and keep the discourse going, stay engaged. I think just the outcomes of this election also prove to a lot of people that you really just can't stay home on election day.
Yeah.
People basically died to get a lot of people like ourselves the right to vote. And,
True.
And you just really, I've heard this so many times. That doesn't have anything to do with me, bro. It doesn't have anything to do with you. You don't realize that
the shoulders you stand on.
Absolutely. And being able to vote is not something that cannot be taken away.
Yeah. So. That is very big. And as we get ready to close off on the segment with the politics topic here on the Squirrel Rosenberg Radio, I would like to close with that statement about voting, because if you think you don't have a voice, think again.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't even motivate you, think about those people who have died.
Think about your children. Think about who is to come. Not just about yourself. What position are they going to be in? If they have to restart that whole struggle of just being able to choose leaders here in this country, that we think that chapter is closed, which is good that it is, but every generation has a responsibility to make sure that the next generation has just as much options and opportunity as you do, or even more so.
Yeah, true. I love that. And to really, as we get ready to wrap up this interview with Jeffrey on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio, when you initially came in, we were talking about a project that you're working on that's close to your heart. Let me know about that project.
Yeah, so the project is to develop a branded line of natural drinks. And
what's the name of the
name of the drink line is Enduri,
Enduri.
Enduri. And the ENDURII. There's a website, ENDURII.com. So the whole concept of Enduri is it's basically I and I endure.
I and I endure.
So,
ladies and gentlemen, that's another jewel on Squirrel Rosenberg Radio. Stay focused. All the Jamaicans out there know I and I endure. But let's big that up for a little bit for all our other non-Jamaican listeners.
Right, so
I and I endure.
So it's endure. So well, I guess our call phrase is basically endure and build vibes.
Yes.
So it's even though if you're in a place of nothing or there's nothing going on, the bottom line is the vibes you bring can change the dynamics. So
that's what you're seeing right now in Squirrel Rosenberg Radio. That's what you're seeing right now in the studio, bro.
Yeah.
The energy.
Yeah. So, some of the projects we plan to move forward with going towards the end of the year is a robotics competition in Jamaica.
Speak on that.
Yeah. So we want to do a original robot competition where young people, basically anybody, can from concept conceive a robot in certain design parameters, build it to compete, and through elimination we'll have a champion. And the whole focus of that is that everybody is valuable and people have original ideas of how to approach a problem. And if you give a group of youngsters the same color paints, the same paint brushes, and say, paint a picture, say 5 of them, you'll get 5 different outcomes.
Yes, you're right.
So the whole approach to electronics and robotics is that their solutions will be unique solutions.
Yes.
And I just want to see people, give people a chance. Endure wants to give people a chance to express that creative force, that creative energy in them, and let it come out and shine.
Wow.
Because from youngsters, sometimes youngsters can be discouraged from being creative.
Yes.
Because
it's outside of the norm.
It's outside of the norm. But what I want them to feel is that is something that you must let live.
Yes.
You must let shine.
Yes.
Bring that to the table. Let that part of you shine.
Yeah.
Because we don't know, our influence on someone, what they will go on to do. You don't know.
Yeah.
So that's not for me to say or endure to say. So that's a whole philosophy that even though we're into selling drink products, we're really into
it's a message.
People. Yeah. We're into people.
I like that. And what's so funny? I got to salute you because as I hear you say the name, not only does it roll off the tongue, right? But endure in reverse is I and I
endure.
Endure.
Yeah.
So the message behind that and having that Jamaican vibe behind I and I Endure, it's big. So I want to salute you on that project.
Thank you, man.
And as a matter of fact, I just want to let you know, not because we are very good friends and brothers from another mother, but I want to let you know that the Squirrel Rosenberg movement will be behind.
Oh, love that, man.
Your drink product.
In turn, I want to be a sponsor, man.
Yeah, you'll be a big part of the show, and we want to help you establish this robotics project you're doing in Jamaica.
Man, yeah.
And let's connect.
And I see you there, man. I want you to interview my contestants.
We will be there, and we're going to be broadcasting live. Our podcast will be done right there.
Oh, I love that.
Manny, would you like to go to Jamaica? Yeah. So we're going to be doing this live and really getting this vibe. But I really thank you, Jeffrey, for coming by and sharing what you did. Not only the intimate stories on your growth process, but where you are right now, your kids, the impact you're making on your kids, your involvement in the church, the independent idea that you're bringing to what you're doing.
Thank you, bro.
Which is why we still have this common thread and cord, because I really salute you for that. So I want to give a big round of applause to my guest, Jeffrey, for coming by. As we close, Jeff, is there anything you'd want to say to our listeners out there that, or another jewel or a quote or anything that keeps you grounded before we close?
This is for real. I mean, Squirrel Rosenberg is about people. He's about love. He's about life. And I'm just honored and very happy that, I got an opportunity to come through.
Guilty as charged. Toast to that.
To support you.
Big up to Heineken, our biggest sponsor. Want you to let you know that. Yeah, I really appreciate your honesty for saying that, bro. And I'll take this chance again and give a round of applause for you coming through. Big shout out. Everybody, this interview will be on SoundCloud within a couple hours. You'll be able to see this live on our YouTube channel. We're going to be streaming this on Facebook. Instagram's going to be popping. We're going to take some photos in the background a little bit later on and show you what's really going on at the set here. Thank you for tuning in. I just want to let you go. Next week, coming up, we have some interesting guests lined up. Nothing as banging as what we have right now, but we get better and better each week with Squirrel Rosenberg Radio, showing you better footages, better guests, and just having a wonderful time here. Thank you for tuning in. And if you can't be bad, be good. Squirrel Rosenberg Radio. Thank you for tuning in.